Some of the biggest R&B songs of the 1980s were never supposed to exist. They were rejected, abandoned, almost handed to other artists, and in some cases, just one decision away from disappearing forever. Imagine if one producer had said no, if one singer had walked out of the studio, or if one record executive had made a different call. The soundtrack of an entire generation would sound completely different today. Welcome to R&B Blueprint. Today, we're counting down 10 iconic 1980s R&B songs that almost never happened. And by the time we reach number 1, you'll discover the legendary classic that came within hours of being lost forever. Number 10, Whitney Houston, Saving All My Love for You, 1985. On your list, but look down and cry. When people remember Whitney Houston's rise to superstardom, they usually think about the incredible voice, the effortless high notes, and the string of #1 hits that followed. But very few realize that one of the songs responsible for launching her into international stardom wasn't originally written for her at all. In fact, years before Whitney ever stepped into the studio, Saving All My Love for You had already existed, recorded by another artist, and quietly forgotten. It wasn't considered a blockbuster. It wasn't viewed as a future classic. It was simply another beautiful ballad that never reached the audience it deserved. You've got feeling blue. The song was written by Michael Masser and Jerry Goffin, two respected songwriters with an impressive resume. The first version was recorded in 1978 by the duo Marilyn McCoo and Billie Davis Jr. Critics appreciated it, but commercially, it failed to make much impact. Like thousands of songs during that era, it seemed destined to fade into history. 5 years later, when producer Michael Masser began working with a young Whitney Houston on her debut album, he remembered the forgotten composition and believed her extraordinary voice could unlock something audiences had never heard in the original. That decision wasn't universally welcomed. Executives at Arista Records were carefully building Whitney's image as America's next crossover superstar. There were concerns that the song's storyline, about a woman involved in an affair with a married man, might create controversy around a brand new artist. Some insiders questioned whether releasing such mature subject matter as an early single was the right move. Others feared younger listeners might reject such a slow, emotional ballad in an era increasingly driven by upbeat pop records. Whitney, however, approached the song differently. Instead of focusing on the controversy, she focused on the emotion. Her vocal performance transformed the lyrics into something deeply personal, filled with longing, vulnerability, and restraint. Producer Michael Masser deliberately kept the arrangement elegant and understated, allowing Whitney's voice to become the true centerpiece. Rather than overpowering the song with vocal acrobatics, she demonstrated remarkable control, making every note feel intimate and believable. When Saving All My Love for You was finally released in 1985, every doubt disappeared. The song climbed to #1 on the Billboard Hot 100, becoming Whitney Houston's first chart-topping single in the United States. It also won her first Grammy Award for Best Female Pop Vocal Performance. introducing the world to a vocalist whose emotional delivery matched her astonishing technical ability. Overnight, Whitney stopped being simply the daughter of gospel legend Cissy Houston or the promising newcomer signed by Arista. She became a global star in her own right. Looking back, it's remarkable how close this song came to remaining a forgotten recording from the late 1970s. Instead, one producer's belief, one singer's unforgettable interpretation, and one carefully chosen performance transformed an overlooked composition into one of the defining love songs of the decade. It became proof that sometimes greatness isn't about writing a brand new song. It is about discovering the perfect voice, waiting to bring an existing one to life. And if Whitney Houston showed how a forgotten song could become legendary, the next artist proved that sometimes the greatest masterpiece almost never happened because the singer herself had lost faith in her own career. Number 9. Anita Baker, Sweet Love, 1986. By 1986, Anita Baker wasn't the obvious choice to become the face of sophisticated R&B. She had spent years struggling through failed groups, uncertain contracts, and an industry that never seemed fully convinced of her commercial potential. Even after signing with Elektra Records and releasing Rapture, expectations remained relatively modest. The label hoped for respectable sales, but few predicted the album would become one of the defining R&B releases of the decade. Ironically, the song that would change everything almost didn't make the impact anyone expected. Sweet Love was written by Anita Baker alongside Louis A. Johnson and Gary Bias. Early in the recording process, there were discussions about which songs should receive the strongest promotional push. Some executives believed other tracks on Rapture were safer commercial bets, while Sweet Love was viewed primarily as a smooth adult contemporary ballad rather than a crossover smash. Anita herself was famously meticulous in the studio. She spent countless hours refining vocal takes, adjusting phrasing, and insisting that every emotional nuance felt authentic. Producers have often described her perfectionism as one of her defining characteristics. Rather than rushing sessions, Baker would revisit recordings repeatedly until she believed every line communicated genuine feeling. That relentless pursuit of excellence extended to Sweet Love, where subtle vocal choices ultimately became the song's greatest strength. When Elektra finally released the record, audiences connected almost immediately. Sweet Love climbed the R&B charts before crossing into mainstream pop radio, introducing millions of listeners to Baker's warm contralto voice and elegant musical style. The song helped Rapture sell millions of copies worldwide, earned Anita Baker a Grammy Award, and established her as one of the premier voices of contemporary R&B. It also became one of the defining slow jams of the entire decade, inspiring countless singers who followed. More importantly, Sweet Love demonstrated that emotional sincerity could outperform flashy production. In an era filled with synthesizers, dance records, and increasingly polished pop arrangements, Anita Baker reminded listeners that authenticity still mattered. Her restrained delivery created a timeless recording that continues to resonate decades later, proving that vulnerability often leaves a deeper impression than spectacle. The success of Sweet Love revived a career that had once seemed uncertain, but the next artist on our list nearly saw his biggest anthem disappear for an entirely different reason. It wasn't the label that doubted the song, it was the artist himself who had to fight for complete creative freedom. Number 8, Bobby Brown, My Prerogative, 1988.
Well, they say I'm crazy, tried hard to make it right, but not alone.
By 1988, Bobby Brown had something to prove. Just a few years earlier, he had been dismissed as the reckless member who couldn't fit into the polished image of New Edition. Being removed from one of the biggest R&B groups in America could have ended his career before it truly began. Instead, Bobby saw it as an opportunity to redefine himself, not as a former boy band singer, but as a superstar with his own identity. That journey reached its peak with My Prerogative, a song that almost never happened because the message frightened the very people responsible for selling it.
Getting girls, that's how just let me go. Cause Bobby doesn't want to fight, now sing it.
The song was written and produced by Teddy Riley, one of the architects of what would soon become known as New Jack Swing. Riley understood that Bobby wasn't looking for another love ballad or another dance record. He needed a statement, something that would answer every critic who had called him difficult, irresponsible, or impossible to manage. When Riley presented the idea behind My Prerogative, Bobby immediately recognized it wasn't just another single, it was his autobiography in musical form.
Everybody's talking.
Not everyone shared that excitement. Inside the label, there were concerns that lyrics defending personal choices and rejecting public judgment could damage Bobby's reputation even further. Headlines already followed his every move, and some executives believed releasing such a confrontational record might reinforce the negative image surrounding him instead of helping him escape it. The chorus itself, declaring that it was his prerogative to live his life however he chose, was seen as unusually bold for mainstream R&B radio.
I don't think it's cause what I'm doing for.
But Bobby refused to soften the message. Every lyric reflected the pressure he had experienced since leaving New Edition. The tabloids criticized him. Television questioned his behavior. Industry insiders openly doubted whether he could survive without the group that made him famous. Rather than apologize, he leaned directly into the criticism, turning public opinion into creative fuel. It was a risky decision, especially in an era when artists often relied heavily on carefully managed public images.
But not alone. Get busy. Everybody's talking all this decision. That's my prerogative. Listen here.
When My Prerogative arrived in late 1988, it exploded. The record became Bobby Brown's signature song, topped the Billboard R&B chart, reached #1 on the Billboard Hot 100, and helped drive the success of the Don't Be Cruel album, which would eventually sell over 12 million copies worldwide. More importantly, it completely changed how audiences viewed Bobby Brown. He was no longer the guy who got kicked out of New Edition. He had become one of the biggest solo stars in music.
Getting girls, that's how I live.
The influence of My Prerogative stretched far beyond its commercial success. The song became an anthem of artistic independence, inspiring generations of performers to embrace authenticity instead of chasing approval. It also helped establish Teddy Riley's New Jack Swing sound as the defining musical movement bridging traditional R&B and hip-hop at the end of the decade. Looking back, it's remarkable that executives worried the song was too controversial. In reality, Its honesty became the very reason people connected with it.
It's my prerogative. 'Cause all these strange relationships, the real.
And while Bobby Brown fought to control his public image, the next artist on our list was fighting for something even bigger: complete control over her own career. Without one bold decision, one groundbreaking album, and one unforgettable title track, pop and R&B history might have looked very different.
My own decisions shall be.
Number 7, Janet Jackson, Control, 1986. Before 1986, Janet Jackson was known more for her famous last name than for her own music. As the youngest sister of the legendary Jackson family, expectations surrounded her from the very beginning. Her first 2 albums had produced only modest success, and many critics questioned whether she would ever escape the enormous shadow cast by her brother, Michael Jackson. Behind the scenes, Janet was facing something even more personal. She wanted creative control over her life, her music, and her future. That desire became the foundation of the album Control. After separating professionally and personally from people who had been making decisions for her, Janet teamed up with producers Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis. The partnership almost never happened. At the time, Jam and Lewis had recently been fired from touring with Prince after missing a concert because of production work. Some in the industry wondered whether trusting 2 producers carrying that kind of baggage was a gamble. Janet ignored the doubts. When work began on Control, everyone involved understood the song had to mean something larger than simply becoming a hit. It had to introduce an entirely new Janet Jackson. The lyrics reflected her determination to make her own decisions after years of being managed by others. Rather than presenting herself as the quiet younger sister of a musical dynasty, Janet declared that she was taking charge of her own career. It was an unusually personal statement for mainstream R&B in the mid-1980s, and not everyone believed audiences would embrace such a direct message. Some executives questioned whether the song was too assertive for radio. Female artists were often expected to present softer, more romantic material, and Control challenged those expectations head-on. But Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis believed that authenticity would resonate more deeply than playing it safe. Their production blended funk, synthesizers, electronic drums, and R&B into a fresh sound that felt unlike anything dominating the charts at the time. They were right. Released in early 1986, Control became a defining anthem of self-confidence and independence. The album itself produced multiple hit singles, sold millions of copies around the world, and transformed Janet Jackson into one of the most influential artists of her generation. Critics praised not only the music, but also the honesty behind it. For many listeners, Control wasn't simply entertainment, it was empowerment. Perhaps the most remarkable part of the story is that Janet wasn't trying to start a movement. She was simply telling the truth about where she stood in her own life. That honesty connected with millions of people facing similar struggles for independence, whether in family, work, or relationships. Decades later, Control remains one of the defining statements of artistic freedom in modern music, proving that the most powerful records often begin with someone finally deciding to speak for themselves. If Janet Jackson taught the world the power of taking control, the next artist needed almost no introduction. His debut solo hit arrived with so much confidence that it sounded effortless. But behind that effortless groove was a recording that nearly took a very different path before becoming one of the greatest debut singles in R&B history.
Don't make me lose it. Feel easier.
Number 6. Luther Vandross, Never Too Much, 1981.
Check it out. I can't fool myself, I don't want nobody to stop. Oh my love.
Long before Luther Vandross became one of the greatest voices in R&B history, he was the man behind the curtain. Throughout the 1970s, his voice was everywhere, even if most people didn't know his name. He sang background vocals for artists like David Bowie, Chaka Khan, Diana Ross, Roberta Flack, Bette Midler, and countless others. Inside the music industry, Luther was already respected as a perfectionist with extraordinary vocal talent. Outside of it, however, he remained largely anonymous.
You are my shining star, your heart, and you told me to come and all my love. And I just don't wanna stop too much.
For years, record labels struggled to see him as a leading man. They admired his musicianship, but questioned whether his image could carry a superstar career. Executives often looked for flashy performers with obvious commercial appeal, while Luther preferred letting the music speak for itself. That hesitation delayed his opportunity to record a solo album. Had those doubts continued, one of R&B's defining voices might have remained in the background forever. Everything changed when Epic Records finally gave him the chance to create his own project. Instead of chasing popular trends, Luther trusted his instincts. He wrote and produced Never Too Much, with an approach that blended soul, disco, jazz influences, and polished R&B into something effortlessly joyful. The song wasn't built around heartbreak or drama. It celebrated love with warmth, confidence, and an infectious groove that immediately felt timeless. Ironically, that simplicity caused some early uncertainty, as a few insiders wondered whether the song lacked the dramatic edge dominating radio at the time.
And I was broken-hearted, hung up the phone, can't buy too much. Never too much, never too much.
Luther never tried to overpower the record with excessive vocal runs. His performance was smooth, conversational, and remarkably controlled. Every phrase sounded natural, making listeners feel as though he was singing directly to them rather than performing for an audience. That understated confidence became one of his greatest strengths. Rather than chasing trends, he created a sound entirely his own. When Never Too Much was released in 1981, it became an instant success. The single reached #1 on Billboard's R&B chart, introduced Luther Vandross as a major solo artist, and helped launch an extraordinary career that would eventually include 8 Grammy Awards and more than 40 million records sold worldwide. More importantly, the song proved that authenticity could triumph over industry expectations. The same executives who once questioned his commercial potential suddenly had one of the biggest stars in contemporary R&B on their roster.
On night that I don't love you, you're at the top of
Looking back, it's astonishing how close the world came to never hearing Luther Vandross as a solo artist. Had labels continued viewing him only as an exceptional background vocalist, music would have lost one of its most elegant storytellers. Never Too Much didn't just launch a career. It redefined what sophistication sounded like in 1980s R&B. influencing generations of singers who followed.
Enough to swim in. That's when you opened up your heart.
And if Luther Vandross proved patience could eventually be rewarded, the next artist refused to wait for anyone's approval. He ignored nearly every rule in popular music, broke convention after convention, and released a song that record executives initially couldn't even categorize.
I can't fool myself, I don't want nobody else to.
Number 5. Prince, When Doves Cry, 1980. By the time Prince began working on Purple Rain, he was already known as one of the most gifted musicians in the world. He wrote, produced, arranged, and performed nearly every instrument on his records, often working alone for hours inside the studio. But even by Prince's extraordinary standards, When Doves Cry was unlike anything anyone expected. In fact, one of the song's defining characteristics came from a decision that almost convinced people it would never work. The original recording contained a traditional bass line, just like most pop, funk, and R&B records of the era. Then Prince did something almost unimaginable. During the final stages of production, he removed the bass entirely. Engineers, musicians, and executives were stunned. Bass had long been considered the foundation of modern popular music, especially in funk and R&B. Without it, many believed the record would sound unfinished, empty, or simply too strange for radio audiences. Prince refused to reconsider. He believed the absence of bass created tension that perfectly matched the emotional weight of the lyrics. Inspired by themes of family conflict, complicated relationships, and emotional vulnerability portrayed in Purple Rain, the song explored pain with an honesty rarely heard in mainstream music. Instead of filling every space with instrumentation, Prince allowed silence to become part of the performance. That artistic gamble would become one of the boldest production choices in pop history. Warner Brothers executives reportedly questioned whether radio programmers would embrace such an unconventional recording. Yet Prince had earned enough creative freedom to insist that the song be released exactly as he intended. He wasn't interested in compromising simply because something had never been done before. His confidence came from understanding that innovation often sounds uncomfortable before it becomes influential. The gamble paid off beyond anyone's expectations. Released in 1984, When Doves Cry became the biggest-selling single in the United States that year. It reached number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100, dominated international charts, and became the emotional centerpiece of Purple Rain, one of the most celebrated albums in music history. Critics praised not only Prince's songwriting but also his fearless production choices, which forever changed the boundaries of pop and R&B. The influence of When Doves Cry can still be heard decades later. Producers across multiple genres have cited its stripped-down arrangement as proof that breaking the rules can sometimes produce the most unforgettable records. What once seemed like a dangerous mistake became a masterclass in artistic confidence. Prince trusted his instincts over conventional wisdom, and music history rewarded him for it. As revolutionary as Prince's masterpiece was, the next song on our countdown faced an even greater challenge. It wasn't just competing with expectations. It had to convince an entire record label that one of the most famous entertainers in the world still had another classic left inside him. That decision would give us one of the greatest songs ever recorded. Number 4, Michael Jackson, Billie Jean, 1983. When people talk about the greatest songs ever recorded, Billie Jean is almost always part of the conversation. It transformed Michael Jackson from an already successful solo artist into the biggest entertainer on the planet. But what many fans don't know is that the song almost lost one of its most recognizable features before it was ever released. Had one executive gotten his way, history would have sounded very different. The story began during the recording sessions for Thriller. Michael Jackson had already enjoyed major success with Off the Wall, but he believed his next album had to surpass everything he had ever done. He wasn't interested in making another hit record. He wanted to create the greatest pop album in history. Among dozens of songs being developed, Billie Jean stood out immediately because of its mysterious lyrics and unforgettable groove. Michael later explained that the song was inspired by stories of obsessive fans and false paternity claims that had followed him and his brothers during their years with the Jacksons. Producer Quincy Jones immediately recognized the song's potential, but not everything about the recording was agreed upon. One of the biggest disagreements centered on the introduction. Michael loved the now iconic bass line and wanted listeners to experience every second of it before the vocals entered. Quincy, however, worried that the intro was too long for radio. In an era when programmers wanted songs to grab attention quickly, there was pressure to shorten it. Michael refused. He believed the opening wasn't just an introduction, it was the heartbeat of the entire record. He later explained that hearing that bass line made him want to dance before a single lyric had even been sung. Eventually, Quincy trusted Michael's instincts, and the intro remained exactly as audiences know it today. It would become one of the most recognizable openings in music history. When Billie Jean was released in January 1983, the response was immediate. The single spent 7 weeks at number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100, topped charts around the world, and became the driving force behind Thriller, which would go on to become the best-selling album of all time. But perhaps the song's biggest cultural moment came during the television special Motown 25, Yesterday, Today, Forever. Performing Billie Jean, Michael debuted the moonwalk to a national audience. Overnight, the performance became legendary, forever changing live entertainment. The success of Billie Jean reached far beyond sales figures. Its groundbreaking music video helped break racial barriers on MTV, opening doors for countless black artists whose videos had previously received limited exposure. Suddenly, music television looked different, pop music sounded different, and Michael Jackson became more than a superstar. He became a global phenomenon whose influence reached every corner of popular culture. Looking back, it's remarkable that one of history's most famous songs nearly lost the very introduction that made listeners stop what they were doing. Michael trusted his artistic instincts when others questioned them, and that confidence changed music forever. Sometimes greatness isn't about making the safest decision. Sometimes it's about refusing to remove the part everyone else thinks is too risky. If Michael Jackson proved that believing in your vision could reshape an entire industry, the next artist showed that elegance, patience, and simplicity could quietly conquer the world without ever raising their voice. Number 3, Sade, Smooth Operator, 1984. Unlike many artists, chasing chart success during the flashy 1980s, Sade Adu never seemed interested in following trends. While synth pop, arena rock, and dance music dominated radio, she and her band were crafting something entirely different, music built on restraint, sophistication, and atmosphere. Smooth Operator would eventually become one of the defining songs of the decade. But before the world embraced its effortless cool, there were real doubts that it could succeed in the mainstream. The song had existed in live performances before Sade even signed a major recording contract. She and her band regularly performed it in London clubs, gradually refining the arrangement in front of audiences. That slow evolution became one of the song's greatest strengths. By the time recording sessions began for the album Diamond Life, Smooth Operator already possessed a maturity that many studio-created singles never achieve. Yet some label executives questioned whether such a jazz-influenced record could compete with louder, more commercial releases. Instead of changing their formula, Sade remained committed to the song's understated style. The lyrics painted the portrait of a charming but emotionally detached con man, moving effortlessly through high society, leaving broken hearts wherever he went. Rather than relying on dramatic vocal fireworks, Sade delivered the story with calm precision. Every note sounded controlled, every phrase intentional. That quiet confidence became the song's signature. The production also broke away from conventional pop formulas. Smooth saxophone lines, restrained percussion, tasteful guitar work, and sophisticated harmonies created an atmosphere closer to a late-night jazz club than a crowded dance floor. It wasn't designed to overwhelm listeners. It invited them in. In an industry increasingly obsessed with bigger sounds and louder hooks, Smooth Operator succeeded by doing the exact opposite. Released internationally in 1984 and gaining major success in the United States in 1985, Smooth Operator became Sade's breakthrough hit. The single climbed into the top 10 of the Billboard Hot 100 and helped Diamond Life become one of the best-selling debut albums by a British female vocalist at the time. More importantly, it introduced a completely different approach to R&B, one built on elegance, emotional intelligence, and timeless songwriting rather than short-lived trends. Its influence continues decades later. Countless neo-soul, jazz, and contemporary R&B artists have cited Sade as a major inspiration, not because she chased popularity, but because she remained faithful to her artistic identity. Smooth Operator proved that sophistication could be commercially successful without sacrificing authenticity. It became a reminder that sometimes the quietest voice in the room leaves the strongest impression. And if Sade mastered the art of saying more with less, the next song on our countdown nearly disappeared because its own creator didn't believe it belonged on the album. That single decision almost cost the world one of the greatest love songs ever written. Number 2, Lionel Richie, Hello, 1984.
And in my dreams I ever wanted, and my arms are open wide.
Sometimes the biggest songs in history begin as the ones nobody wants. That was almost the fate of Lionel Richie's Hello. Today, it's impossible to imagine the 1980s without that unforgettable piano introduction and the line, "Hello, is it me you're looking for?" But before it became one of the most recognizable love songs ever recorded, Lionel Richie himself wasn't even sure it belonged on his album.
Inside my door, and you know just what to do.
The story began during the recording sessions for Can't Slow Down. Lionel had already established himself as one of the biggest names in music after leaving the Commodores. Hits like Truly and You Are had proven he could dominate the charts as a solo artist, but he was determined not to repeat himself. He wanted every song on his next album to feel fresh. Hello, however, was different. He had written the chorus years earlier but couldn't find the right verses to complete it. Frustrated, he set the unfinished song aside, believing it simply wasn't working. For a long time, Hello remained incomplete. Lionel later admitted that he nearly abandoned the idea altogether because every attempt to finish it felt forced. It wasn't until producer James Anthony Carmichael encouraged him to revisit the melody that inspiration finally returned. Once Lionel completed the lyrics, the emotional story fell perfectly into place. The song wasn't just about romance. It was about longing, distance, and the fear of loving someone who may never love you back.
I love you. What you do? Are you somewhere?
Even then, there were doubts. Some executives questioned whether another slow ballad could stand out in an era filled with upbeat pop records and synthesizer-driven dance music. Others wondered if the melody was too simple. Lionel ignored the concerns. He believed simplicity was exactly what made the song powerful. Rather than hiding emotion behind complicated production, he allowed the lyrics and melody to carry the weight of the story.
Tell me, there you are, and I wonder.
Then came the music video, a decision that elevated the song into another dimension. Directed by Bob Giraldi, the video told the story of a blind art student secretly in love with her teacher. The unforgettable scene, where she reveals a clay sculpture of Lionel Richie's face, became one of MTV's defining moments. Suddenly, Hello wasn't just a hit record. It became a cultural event that millions of people associated with one of the most memorable music videos of the decade.
Tell me how will your heart.
Released in 1984, Hello reached number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100, the R&B chart, and the adult contemporary chart simultaneously. It also topped charts in numerous countries around the world, becoming one of Lionel Richie's signature songs. Decades later, its opening line remains instantly recognizable across generations, proving that emotional honesty never goes out of style.
You're all and I want to tell you so much.
Looking back, it's astonishing that one of the greatest love songs ever written nearly stayed unfinished in a notebook. Had Lionel Richie listened to his doubts instead of his instincts, music history would have lost one of its most iconic ballads.
I long to see the sunlight.
But as remarkable as that story is, the song at number 1 came even closer to never existing. It wasn't rejected by a label. It wasn't abandoned because of writer's block. It almost disappeared because its creator didn't even believe it should be released.
Your hair I've ever wanted, and my arms are open wide.
Number 1, George Michael, Careless Whisper, 1984.
Careless whispers, comfort in the truth, baby.
Some songs become classics because they're brilliantly produced. Others become classics because they're deeply personal. But every once in a while, a song becomes timeless because it captures an emotion so universal that every generation hears its own story inside it. That's exactly what happened with Careless Whisper. The remarkable part is that George Michael almost never released it. The song's origins stretched back years before George became an international superstar. At just 17 years old, while riding a bus to work as a movie theater usher, he began writing lyrics inspired by guilt, heartbreak, and youthful mistakes. Long before Wham! Became a global phenomenon, George already carried the melody in his head, but he wasn't convinced it belonged in the modern pop landscape that was beginning to embrace brighter, more upbeat sounds.
Dance floor as the music dies, though it's easy to pretend I know you're.
As Wham! Exploded internationally, George focused on energetic hits like Wake Me Up Before You Go Go. Careless Whisper felt different. It was slower, darker, and emotionally heavier than anything audiences expected from him. For a time, he questioned whether releasing such a mature ballad would confuse fans who associated Wham! With colorful pop anthems and carefree energy. Fortunately, producer Jerry Wexler heard something extraordinary. He encouraged George to trust the emotional honesty of the song rather than chase expectations. George remained intensely involved in every detail of the recording, repeatedly reworking the production until it matched the vision he had imagined for years. The famous saxophone melody, performed by Steve Gregory, became one of the most unforgettable instrumental hooks ever recorded. Ironically, George reportedly remained dissatisfied with several early versions of the song and insisted on recording it again before approving the final release. When Careless Whisper arrived in 1984, the response exceeded every expectation. The single reached number 1 in more than 20 countries, sold millions of copies worldwide, and transformed George Michael from pop idol into a respected songwriter capable of extraordinary emotional depth. The song's music video received heavy rotation on MTV, ensuring that both the song and its haunting saxophone introduction became instantly recognizable around the globe. More than 40 years later, Careless Whisper continues to thrive. It has been streamed billions of times, covered by artists across multiple genres, featured in countless films and television shows, and remains one of the defining love songs of the 20th century. Its success wasn't built on elaborate production or flashy trends. It endured because George Michael wrote something painfully human, a story about regret, consequences, and the hope that forgiveness might still be possible. And that that's what makes this countdown so remarkable. 10 unforgettable songs. 10 moments where doubt nearly won. 10 decisions that almost robbed the world of some of the greatest R&B records ever made. Every one of these artists faced rejection, uncertainty, creative disagreements, or personal struggles. But instead of giving up, they trusted their instincts. And because they did, millions of people found songs that became the soundtrack to weddings, first dances, heartbreaks, celebrations, and unforgettable memories. Sometimes the greatest music doesn't come from everything going right. Sometimes it exists because someone refused to quit when everything was telling them to stop. If this documentary taught you something new, hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss another deep dive into the greatest stories in R&B history. And in the comments below, tell us, which 1980s R&B song do you think almost never happened but should have made this list? Until next time, keep listening beyond the music. This is R&B Blueprint.
To the truth, baby.